Billy Graham wrote a quote. He said, once you get your attitude straight around money, it's going to help straighten out every area of your life. Oh my
Yep.
God, dude,
Yep.
that totally changed my world. Like,
Yep.
once I got my attitude straight around money, I had to practice forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a group of advisors in Texas this week, and we spent an hour and a half on forgiving people
Mm.
because I had a coach that said, until you forgive your ex-wife, you're going to be a broke joke your whole life.
Yeah.
I
It's
was
always
like,
someone else's fault, playing the blame game.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, and it's just, he's like, you need to learn how to forgive her, which was one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life.
Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to an episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James. And if you've ever struggled with money, if you've ever struggled with debt, and if you've ever wanted to know what on earth financial literacy is, this is the podcast for you. I have a fantastic guest for you today, and our beliefs are aligned. Like, for people that have listened to podcasts for a long time, you will know that I struggled massively with debt when I got myself into depression. I lost everything. So I lost my business, I lost all my clients, I lost the flat that I was living in, and I got myself into a lot of financial debt. So this is a topic that's extremely close to my heart. And remember, the mission of the podcast is to help as many people as possible, both mentally and physically, become the best versions of themselves. And you can't mentally become the best version of yourself if you are shrouded in debt. So the episode today will give you such valuable content. Get a pen and paper ready, because what Chris is about to give you is going to be absolutely game-changing. So my guest today is Chris Felton. He's the founder and principal of his own financial service business, which he started in 1999. He leads and trains over 220 agents with over 30,000 clients, and is a national speaker and trainer for his firm. He's been featured in Forbes, Fortune, Market Watch, Yahoo Finance, and US News and World Reporter, and is a top leader in one of the world's largest financial services in the United States. Chris is the co-author of Couples Money, which is a book that he wrote with his wife, Marlo, which explains how they were able to quadruple their business in a few short years and overcome serious financial struggles. They share their money secrets, as well as those of numerous financial independent business owners they interviewed in the book. People have discovered how to overcome financial limitations in a simple, no-nonsense approach that has worked for many. Chris and Marlo also have an Amazon best-selling authors, Prosperity Factor co-authored with Joe Vatili. It's a weird last name. So before I introduce Chris properly to the podcast, don't forget, if you take any value from today's episode, which I'm categorically convinced that you will, don't forget to like and share with a friend to help us spread the word to help as many people as possible. Welcome to the podcast, Chris Felton.
Yes, sir. How we doing today?
I'm very, very well. How are you?
Yeah, better than ever, man. Very excited to be with you and your crowd today. So thanks for having me.
The information you've got today is going to help a lot of people. So this is a topic that's very close to my heart, because I have very openly had money problems in the past. When I was depressed, I essentially ruined my entire life, got myself into a lot of debt. Once I got myself out of debt, I then had to understand money. And that was one of the biggest things for me. And I wish I could articulate it as well as you do. So do my research into you. You are very, very good at articulating this topic. So let's just go back a little bit. So why is helping people with their finances so important to you?
Well, I grew up with parents that didn't know how money worked. So they argued, they fought, they stressed out, they divorced, which is why my wife and I wrote our book called Couples Money, because we were actually on the path of divorce, and it was mainly because of the stupid financial decisions I'd made. And so, I mean, 5 leading killers in the United States today are stress related.
Mm.
And, my mom worked her entire life, saved a grand total of $10,000, and, passed away way too early. I mean, it's 2001, it was a while back, I mean, over 20 years ago, but, colon cancer was the reason, but I think it was stress. And I
Mm.
think it was, from the time she was 5 until she was 64, she was just always worried about money. My dad never learned how money worked, made it all the way to 88, and died broke.
Mm.
So and I inherited their belief systems, and they inherited their parents' belief systems. And the bottoming out for me and my wife was me realizing that I had never really questioned the beliefs that were handed to me. And I was repeating the same, over and over again. And unfortunately, well over 90% of people in the United States retire broke. And
I think that's the stat for the whole of the world as well. I don't think that's just specific to the US. Like in the UK, I think it'd be very, very similar as well. Again, if viewers, long-term listeners of the podcast will remember me talking about me and my mum having an argument about her financial education for me was you got to spend less than you earn. And I was like, that is correct. But it's like telling a fat person to just not eat. Like, yes, technically it's correct, but it's not the right way of doing it, and it's not going to get you the desired results. So I think it's very, very similar. Everyone's told this story and narrative about money. So where's that come from? This terrible belief system around money?
Yeah, I mean, beliefs are interesting, and studies show that from ages 0 to 4, I'm a big mindset guy, and there's your conscious mind and your unconscious mind, and your unconscious mind's 95% of the show, right? I mean, it's you're not having to consciously tell your heart to beat right now, right? That's just happening. And until we're 4, we don't really have a conscious mind. So you have no capacity to accept or reject anything. So if I said the most ridiculous statement right now and it didn't line up and you knew it was ridiculous, you would have the capacity to reject what I said. But 0 to 4, you don't. So to get the approval of your surroundings and your parents and your environment, you're just going to accept their stuff. So by the time you're 4, Daniel, you're 50% programmed. And then by the time you're 10, you're about 75%. And so by the time you're 18, you are 95% hardwired programmed. And programming just means you're not having to think about it. It just is running you, at an unconscious level. And because of that, we don't really check the validity of our belief systems. And so from 0 to 4, you're going to, hey, world's friendly, it's unfriendly, money's good, money's bad, people are good, people are bad. So, unless you grew up as inside of a billionaire's home where your environment was like a fish in water and it's all you knew, that's easy to get programmed. But our research has shown that the majority of the top 4% in the United States, and I guess the world, they all had the same negative programming around money, but there came a time in their life when they said that's enough. And for me, I just turned 50 in August, but for me, it was my late 30s. Like I couldn't just keep working harder to overcome these limiting beliefs. And my analogy is always like, about 20 pounds ago and about 20 some years ago, I ran a San Francisco marathon, right? And I was in great shape, but I can't imagine, getting to that start line after training for 6 months and somebody comes and attaches a bowling ball to my ankle and is like, okay, now run. That would have been a harder race.
Because that's what, isn't it? People think they've got to keep earning more money. That's what it is. Like, when I earn more money, then I'll be happy, then I'll be free. But the problem is their spending habits are going with the money that they earn.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the limiting beliefs are these bowling balls, and they're beneath the surface. And yeah, I mean, because I was in that trap. I'm like, okay, and my wife and I are book Couples Money. We say wealth is created from the inside out, and the other 96 think it's the outside in, right? They want the outside world to stay the same while they want the outside world to change while they insist on remaining the same. So, and their life is like what you just described. I call it their life is on the layaway plan, which I was like, one day I'm going to be happy. One day it's going to happen. And one day is it's a big mind virus. And I suffered from it because it was always going to be one day away. But really it's, hey, once this happens, I get the raise, I make more money, things turn up, then I'm going to get my act together.
Yep.
And that outside in approach to life, wealth, health, spirituality, relationship, whatever, it doesn't work. So it is an inside out shifting and changing that has to happen, and it's not overnight. So
No,
that was my experience. Yep.
that's my experience as well. Like, so again, I can completely agree with everything you just said there. I remember the days when I was going out with friends or going out for meals with the family, I had to look at the menu ahead of time to make sure that I had enough money in my bank account to actually pay for the meal that I was having. Like, I remember those days very, very well. It's fair. It's getting me quite emotional thinking about it. Like, I was really not good with money. And let me tell you, the thing for me was I got so pissed off when I understood about financial literacy. Fuming. I was absolutely fuming. I was like, why was I not told this? Why am I not told this at school? And it's one of the things where exactly what you said there. I relate this all to fat loss and mental health. It starts from within, but we're not taught that. Like, we're not taught about these belief systems. We see people that are successful millionaires, and our natural reaction is they must be arseholes. They must have stolen that money. They must not be nice people. When actually, the millionaires that I've met are actually really nice people. And if you talk to them, they'll actually tell you how they did it. But again, it's that negative narrative. And it's just absolutely bizarre. We're programmed to think that to be successful financially, you have to be an arsehole. And it could not be further from the truth. So then people don't want to be an arsehole. They don't want to try and learn about money because money is this evil word. It's like, oh, no, money. Oh, no, that's not for me. So how do we then go about identifying these beliefs? Because the first thing I think is the awareness of it. Because most people listening to this right now may be like, oh, yeah, that kind of is me. But how do we get that awareness? And then where do we go from there?
Well, yeah, and I think that I think what you just talked about is a huge thing. Like, you know, if I'm going to become wealthy, if I get wealthy, I'm going to turn into somebody I'm not. And money makes you more of what you are. If you're a bad person, it's going to make you more of the same. If you're a good person, it's going to make you more of the same, right? It's like a hammer. A hammer can be used for good or bad. And so I think, understand, because my dad said rich people are crooks, and that was, one that was at an unconscious level, but I didn't even know it. So, and 90% of lottery winners are dead, broke, or in jail inside of 10 years.
See,
In this,
sports stars as
yeah, I
well.
was just gonna say
Yeah.
National Football League, NBA. And it's in the concept. I recommend everyone get T. Harv Ecker's book, Secrets of a Millionaire Mind. Unbelievable. It talks about.
I've literally got that. I've got that down here. I just bought it. I've not read it, but I've bought it. Yeah, I heard it. I literally heard it, I think, a week ago on a podcast, and I bought it instantly. So that's bizarre that you just mentioned that book. Yeah, I've got it right underneath.
We were destined to talk. Yeah. Well, and what he talks about in that book is, your money blueprint. And, a billionaire's got a money blueprint that's different than someone that struggles. And so, and then the concept's called a money bucket. So if you have a 50,000 a year income bucket and you get several millions, your subconscious bucket can't handle it. I mean, it's very fascinating, because when the athletes do, stupid things, they call them stupid. I'm like, no, it's not. They subconsciously are, like Mike Tyson. I mean, I think he's fixed it, but Mike Tyson used to say money is like sand in my hands. I mean, that's a limiting belief. It just flows through. And I've watched founders, and they get money and it's all gone. And so this upgrading of your belief systems, my wife keeps telling me I need to upgrade my my iPhone. Every 3 to 4 years, you need to upgrade your computers, you need to upgrade your iPhones, you need to upgrade those things. But most people never upgrade their belief systems. So the starting point, for me, and I always recommend everybody, is just you have a relationship with different topics. You have a relationship, I'm in sales. So if I don't really understand that sales equals serving, then, I'm going to have a bad relationship with the word sales. And it doesn't matter how trained I get, I view selling as negative, not going to work.
Yeah.
And money's the same way, health, whatever. And so my favorite formula is me plus my thought equals the result. And so if the result you don't like financially, like you uncovered it yourself, if you don't like where you are financially, there's you and there's your thinking. So I hired a coach for 4.5 years, and he said, you no longer have a money problem, you have a money project.
Yeah.
And projects, we view projects way different than we do problems. And so point A for me was understanding what my word is with, or what my story was with the word money. And I sat down, well, here's me and there's my situation. Here's my thinking. And it was all the stuff that you went through. Making money's hard. Well, that's a big one. Saving money's hard. Rich people are crooks. They make money on the backs of poor people. And my dad told me that won't make you happy. Just all these. And so for me, Daniel, it was just this long list of stuff that I had made up. And that's what us humans do. We make up stories.
Yeah.
But the cool part was, all I had to do was change the story. So quick story on this, and then I'll shut up and get more of your questions. But I was headlong into personal growth and development, and I was doing a project as part of we had a 10-day men's leadership program I was involved in, and the guy that was there, we became friends. Multi-million, makes multi-millions a year, oil and gas CEO, total stud, great guy. And he's like, why'd you come here? And I was like, well, money. It's just so hard to make and keep and all. And Daniel, he literally looked at me like I was an alien. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, dude, money is the easiest thing on the planet. And I'm like, how old were you? How old were you when you figured that out? He said, I was 3 years old. I'll never forget it. He's like, my dad stared at me and he said, money will flow to you like water.
Wow.
Right? Instantaneous programming.
Yep.
But what do most kids get? Can't afford it. This, money doesn't grow on tree, all the garbage. And then I was like, well, why are you here? And he was going into his 4th marriage that's lasted, thank God. But he had a story around people not being able to trust them. They always let him down, always this, always that. And I didn't have that issue. So here were 2 guys with 2 different total results in 2 different areas of their lives. And that's when it said, I'm like, we've all just been living out a story. So he needed to change his relationship story. I had to go to work changing my money story and actually transform. So that's the good news, is understanding that we as humans make up a lot of stories about stuff. The key is understanding, what are we making up about it? And is it serving us or not? And if it's not, then we need to change the story, which takes some work, but it's worth it, which is one of my themes after I talk every time, is whatever work you think you need to do, don't negotiate whether it's worth it or not. Just understand that it is.
Especially when it comes to money as well, because money is everything. Like, whether people like it or not, like, it's not saying that everyone listening to this podcast wants to be a millionaire. It's not about that. But I know so many people that struggle paycheck to paycheck. So wouldn't it just be nice just to be financially free enough not to worry paycheck to paycheck about if you can pay your bills and your rent and your mortgage, wherever it is? And that's basically what I basically want to get out of it today, Chris, is just this giving people that the knowledge and awareness that they can be financially free, but it starts from within them. And that, for me, people will be listening to that saying, so what, you're telling me that I can make all this money just by changing me? Yes, it's literally that simple. And it should empower people, because they then don't rely on other people or other things or the market, the stocks and shares. It's all down to them and their relationship with it. So one thing that, when you're talking there, it reminded me of one of my limiting beliefs. I think it's my mum used to say to me, was, money burns a hole in my pocket. So that was my one. That was a big thing. And I wrote it down there. So that's massive. And I think a big thing that you said there about stories, we had Paul Cope on the podcast, who's now a good friend of mine. And he spoke a lot about the stories that we construct. And for me, a lot of people construct these stories to justify why they can't do something. Because, as you said, it's hard to then unpick that. So they make these stories up to just play it safe. So the term financial literacy, that's sort of a big thing. What actually is financial literacy? What does it actually mean to be financially literate?
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's just like normal literacy. Okay, if you could imagine not being able to read,
Hmm.
How would that limit your life? I mean, it
Well,
would
well,
be
well, well I can vouch for that because my dyslexia, I literally did not read a book literally at all until the age of 25. No, 21 years old. I've got a degree. So I went to university in America and I got a degree and I'd never read a book front to back ever in my entire life. And now I've just spent £140 on a book to like, I literally love reading now. I'm obsessed with reading, but my belief was I cannot read. I literally should say to
yeah.
myself, I cannot read. But as soon as I realized that was a belief I was putting on myself and I could read, the problem was I just needed to practice it. As soon as I removed that, honestly, I was so pissed off at the story I told myself because when I was reading these books, I was like, all this knowledge that I've missed out on because this stupid story I told myself had absolutely no validity to it. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I want to say about not being able to read. Like I know that as well.
Yeah, no, that's dude, you're quite the story, man. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. But it's no different. Yeah, I mean and so how limited was your life before, and then right, and now
Mhm.
it's basically become massively unlimited, and that's powerful. And so, and it's just the same with financial literacy, and it's you don't need to turn into a PhD on money, but you need the ability, to make wise decisions that will help you grow financially.
Mhm. So
I mean, that's what it means to me.
what bad decisions do you see people making financially?
Well, I mean, in our book Couples Money, I kind of bare my soul because it was actually in T. Harv Eker's book Secrets of a Millionaire Mind, and it was we were in a situation where because of the disaster I'd created, we were $250,000 of unsecured debt, and I'm in financial services and made stupid decisions, and we were just leaking money right, and I mean it was unbelievable, and so it was a big elephant, and once my wife and I, after having a massive blowout fight, once I realized that wherever I've had a money problem in my life, Daniel, I've always been there.
Yeah.
Um, and and I was the common denominator of all my issues. Then I decided to sit down and go, you know what? I'm gonna go all in on shifting these belief systems and changing some habits, and I'm gonna treat this topic of money mindset like an Olympic athlete would treat their sport. And so that's what I did. I was just waking up early and reading what I could and journaling and just what it is, what the work is like, and you got to do the work. But anyway, but so I'd read T. Harv's book before, but now my awareness was changing,
Mm,
and he said until you start managing the money that you have now, well, you won't see anymore.
mm,
And that was like a piano that just hit me. I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, I am dying the death of 1,000 cuts. And what I did next is I found a simple, financial calculator on the internet, and my office was literally across the street from the sandwich place called Quiznos.
yep.
And I was there every day, 5, 6, 7 days a week. Um, I mean, just every day.
Mhm.
And it was 15, 20, $30 a shot. And so I just put, I put in the calculator and okay, what if I would have brown bagged it and not spent the 20, 30, $40? And, what would that have led to?
Mm,
And over 20, 30 years, I mean, it was multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it was like the real moment of compounding interest, which is your interest growing on your interest, and most
yeah.
people have that with their debt, not you know that. And so it's not the money that you blow, it's what the money would have done. And so that was the moment, man. I'm just like, okay, like success is all about small things cared for, and if we're going to do something big, we got to take care of the small stuff. So it was that awareness. And and the pandemic taught us that the amount of money that unconsciously blows out of people's lives, the
Mm,
small dollars,
yeah.
it's tremendous. So
Yeah.
once we start taking care of the small things and being trusted with the small things, we could be trusted with the bigger things.
Yeah.
So the one thing. I've never met anyone that doesn't have a 10, 15, 20, even more. I was happy hour king. I mean, dude, it was unbelievable how much money was blown out of my life, and had really no respect for money.
But that's what it is, the respect for money. And it's one of the biggest things that I say to people. People say they can't afford things, for example, coaching, or they can't afford a seminar or whatever it is to better themselves. Yet they'll go out on a weekend and happily spend £100. They will, again, go and have a Starbucks coffee, which again, what, £5 a shot, whatever it is. And you're looking at it, it's like all these things they're spending money on, and they're just caught in the system, which has encouraged them to get more and more and more in debt. And you got that buy now, pay later. There's all these things. It's like, if you can't afford something, this was my biggest thing. The biggest thing that I learned was, if I can't afford something, I do not buy it. It's as simple as that. Like, if I have to pay in installments, I can't afford it. That's assuming that I've got money coming in. What happens if I break my leg and I've got no money coming in? I'm now in debt. So that was one of the biggest things that I took from my journey on financial education is, if I cannot afford something outright, whether it's a car, coffee machine, because again, I spent £2,000 on a coffee machine. So people laughed at that. I love coffee. I bought that coffee machine outright. I would have spent £5, £6, £7 a day going to the local coffee thing to get that. I've saved myself. That's an investment for me, and I could afford it outright. I didn't buy it on interest free. I bought it outright. My car, bought it outright. My phone, all these things now that people think is nuts. It's like, no. I'm now in control, and I respect money. I understand the game. And that's what it is for me. Once I saw it as a game and you understand the rules, you can then win the game. The problem is certain people keep the rule book to themselves and let everyone fend and sort of try and pick up the pieces. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And there's another book out there. I don't know if you've heard. It's called Your Money or Your Life.
Nope. Writing that down.
And God, I always forget the name. I think Vicky Robin. And then anyway, but this is like, you get in the gnat's knees about what you're spending. You like, they get you to record it. And University of Denver here, they I haven't checked in a while, but it was a college course. It was a 3-credit-hour course they had. But basically, this guy was trying to figure out how he was going to be able to just retire part-time or whatever. And he figured out, okay, this amount of money I make, and then what do I really, really make? So what's the net amount I'm making? And, subtracting money I spend on my career, gas, eating out, whatever it is. And then door to door, how much time am I allocating? So, you could figure it out, net amount of money divided by, lots of people put in way more time than just at the job, especially, COVID, it's unending. They work. But you figure out $1 per hour, and it was like, let's say it's $20 an hour. And if you go out and blow $1,000 on something divided by $20 an hour, it's the best definition of money I've ever heard, Daniel. It's money, something you exchange your life energy for.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I love that.
Right? Yeah. Something you exchange your life energy for. So when I see these people, blowing money, and I'm like, all right, you went out to the bars and taking your Ubers and all that, and you blew $1,000 on a weekend, and you're making $20 an hour. You just exchanged 50 hours of your life for that.
Oh,
was it gold. Worth it? Was it worth it? So your coffee machine, you're going, hell yeah, it's worth it, because I'm a fellow coffee fiend just like you, brother. And so it's worth it. And so what my wife and I figured out was, we were doing, the eating out and, having these meals and, me blowing money, and all this money I was blowing was like adding no value to my life.
Oh.
So, but we would set big savings goals and hit them. And then we'd treat ourselves. We'd go to Pebble Beach, in just one of the most beautiful places on the planet. We're golfers. And it would be an expensive trip, but it was worth every freaking dollar. And we were able to do that trip because we cut out all the crap that did not add any value to our lives.
That is gold. That is gold. What you just said there, that I think for this entire podcast, if people just take away that that will change people's lives. Like, you are not exchanging money for that thing. You're exchanging your time, and your time is the most precious thing that you have. And then again, this is again, I did this, but I would never have thought of articulating it this way. That's something I did when I was going through my. So now every single week I check my expenses. It's all there. And I keep a thing on an Excel spreadsheet. And whenever I make a decision now, I will ask myself, is this adding value? I subconsciously said that, but I've not put it anywhere here in the show notes. It wasn't a conscious thing, but I asked myself, is this adding value to my life? So that money I spent on that book, people think I'm nuts spending 140 quid on a book. The information that book's going to give me is worth more than 140 quid. Like, and it's as simple as that. Same with the coffee machine. Like, one of my simple pleasures in life is coffee. Genuinely, I don't drink, I don't smoke. Coffee is one of my things. Having that first sip of coffee in the morning is one of the simple pleasures in my life. Is it worth it? Fuck yes. Simple as that. I'm not arguing. It is what it is. Can we pick the pace up with this? Meaning that I really want to get into something with this that is going to blow people's minds. So you've covered a lot already here, but this is something that absolutely blew my mind. And this is the argument I had with my mum to explain why her definition of money was broken about. You need to spend less than you earn. What's the difference between inflation and interest, and why should people care?
Yeah, I mean, inflation is just the capacity over time of prices to just increase, right? And they increase, for different reasons, but prices increase over time. Interesting you bring that up. There's so I'm a Christian, and there's a guy. It's a great book, whether you're a Christian or not. I highly recommend you get it. It's called Evangelpreneur. Evangelpreneur, and he's got the studies that back it up. The guy's name is Josh Tolley. But real inflation in the United States, at least, it's probably not that different, all over the world, is 10%.
Yep.
And real wage growth is 3%.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the price of food, the price of housing, the price of cars, the price of gas, the price of all that stuff. So the only way you can actually keep up with the inflation wave, calls it the inflation wave, is you gotta be a business owner. Mm-hmm. You can't be an employee to do that. And so interest is basically, what somebody charges to give you access to capital that you don't have. I mean, that's really the difference. Or, your capacity to invest and hopefully earn interest, earn a return on your money. And you need to do that because the goal needs to be that you need to earn enough interest to outpace inflation.
Yes. And that's it. That's the biggest thing here. That is, again, you may need to replay this again. That is the biggest thing. Like, everyone's saying that wages have gone up, it's gone up by 3%, as you said. But inflation, if it's gone up by 4%, you're still 1% worse off. So you have to find ways to beat inflation. So inflation is what there's a saying, I can't remember what it is, it's a silent killer or something. It's a silent thing that causes most people to go into debt because they think they're earning X amount of money, but they're actually not, because inflation is going up so high that they get this pay rise, think, oh, that's amazing, but they don't understand about inflation. And this is the thing that blew my mind. This is the thing that made me angry, because everyone's like, oh yeah, you got to save your money, put in a high interest account. The interest account, if people are lucky, is 1.5%. But if inflation is 3%, you're losing 1.5% every single year on your money. Let that sink in. For anyone who's got a savings account, we're going to go into savings in a second. If you're saving your money and you're getting a 1.5% return, which is very, very good, and inflation is on average about 3 or 4%, you are losing 1.5% of your money every single year. You are not gaining 1.5%. You are losing 1.5%. This is something you really need to understand. And it's something that once I figured it out, again, I'm getting goosebumps here because it makes me mad just talking about it. I was so pissed off that no one told me this. Because most people do as they're told. Most people save their money thinking it's the best thing to do. But then the inflation's gone up so high, they don't have the same buying power as they thought they had.
Yeah. Well, and have you heard of the rule of 72?
Hit me.
This is a big one. So the rule of 72 is not actually taught in schools. I didn't know about it. I mean, my background's a certified public accountant, financial advisor. No one ever taught me rule of 72. But you take 72, you divide it by the rate of return that you hope to achieve. And that's how often your money doubles. So 72 divided by 1%, your money is going to double every 72 years. So in the United States, the average rate in a savings account is 0.09%. So 72 divided by 0.09, your money's doubling every 800 years. It's crazy. And here's the crazy part, Daniel. This proves how financially illiterate people are. There's $10 trillion sitting in those types of accounts in the United States.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. So
and what does the bank do with that money? What does the bank do?
They go double their money every 4 years.
Yep.
So, they're getting, 17% interest. And so the banks aren't your friends. And so, if you can go get a 9% rate of return, you guys can do the math. 72 divided by 9, your money's doubling every 8 years. So your key is to get as many doubles as you can, and I got a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. Nobody told me this. I didn't know rule 72 until I was in my early 30s, but I'm like, guys, and there's studies that show that, if the 20-year-old is systematically investing and then stops at age 30, and then the 30-year-old comes in and starts investing and invests until he's 60 or 50 or something, he'll never catch up with the 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And so that's why, Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Mm-hmm. So you either have it working, creating wealth in your investments, or you have it working against you, with banks. And so that also perpetuates the problem too, is, banks have their agenda.
Yep.
And so they're not your friend.
Absolutely. So let's talk about debt, because people are going to be listening to this and then going to be like, this is all well and good, but I'm still 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand in debt, whatever it is. Right. What's the first thing people can do to actually manage their debt? So again, I know what I got taught, but I'm really interested in your take on this. What's the first thing that people can do? Because the first thing people can do to actually increase their wealth is to get rid of the debt, because then by default, you then automatically have more money available to you. So what can people do to get rid of this debt?
Yeah. So, and once again, the mindset around it is what you focus on expands. And so what I'm going to share with you guys, might resonate with some people. It might be different than what you guys have been told. It's just, so we had $250,000 of unsecured debt because of divorce and just stupid stuff that I'd done. And the first step is just spreadsheeting it. I mean, that's, and a lot of people, and I can tell you story after story of different clients, they were little ostriches with their head in the sand, and I call it living on hopium. Okay. Hopium's right. And I'm a recovering hopium addict. So I know what that looks like. Right.
Mate, I absolutely love you. Doing stuff like that is absolute gold, because you're completely right. I did the exact same thing. When I was in so much debt, I knew I was in debt, but I refused to acknowledge how much debt I was in. And the more that I refused to acknowledge it, I was getting addicted to hopium, and it just got worse and worse and worse. Mate, I love that. That's brilliant.
Well, yeah, right. And we're all hoping someone's gonna come rescue us. It's nuts. But anyway, so once I was kind of out of my hopium, and the term is called objective reality, and it's a skill set of the very successful people. They have the capacity to look at their situation without bringing a lot of emotion to it.
Yeah,
which is big. So my wife and I sat down, and she just said, "Okay, here it is. Here's the debt. Here's the interest rates. Here's the payments. Here's all that." And so what we did, and if you are an avid spender, this is a bad idea for you. Okay. But if you're a spender, you got to get your dollar, your $10, $15, $20 a day, out of the way. But my wife, in our book Couples Money, she basically spent 2.5 years flying around finding world-class couples and interviewing them about how they did it.
Yeah.
And so she came back, and the tip, and this is what worked for me, is he said, Brian Tracy, big personal development rock star, he said, if you can't save money, the seeds of greatness aren't in you. And so our mentor said, do you guys want to fix your debt, or you want to create wealth? So they got me, and this is what worked for me, Daniel. It might not work for everybody, but they got me focused on getting obsessed with saving money.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we got all our interest rates down to a small amount. So, we'd call, we'd negotiate, we did balance transfers. I mean, and once again, and there's some debt counselors out there listening to me right now, and they're doing a shot of whiskey because they're like, no, don't do that. Well, this is what worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so the debt thing was a part-time job. It was a project that we were totally bought into with emotion. So we weekly went through and said, okay, now we got this rate from 17 down to 3. We got this rate down, right? You don't close the old cards. You don't do that stuff because you can impact your credit. If you're going to be trying to buy a home or whatever, you probably shouldn't be trying to buy a home until you get debt free. But you got to be careful about all that. But basically, we took 15, 17% interest rates, and then we got them down to 0, 3%, those things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did. But the first thing is, whether you buy into my philosophy or not, is you got to accept where you are.
Yep.
And acceptance is really powerful. And acceptance is not liking it, but you got to quit hating it. Because if you keep hating your situation, what you resist continues to persist. It's just unbelievable. So, acceptance for me is like, if I get a flat tire, I could get, when we get a flat tire, we're like, oh my God, this shouldn't have happened to me. Why'd this happen to me? We go through all these steps, and the flat tire is sitting there going, we don't really care. You just, like, the quicker you can go, there's a flat tire. What do I want? What's the next thing we need to do? So we just got to acceptance, forgave myself. She forgave me. Can't change the past. Spreadsheeted it, had it out. We put it up, multiple locations, so we could see it. And we just went after it, man. And got the credits, got the interest rates down. And it took some freaking work, but it was worth it. But then what we did is we set a savings goal.
Mm-hmm.
And liquid savings. And for us, because I'd created such a mess, we said, okay, and it's all relative. It could be $5,000 for you, could be 1,000, could be 10 grand. We just set a goal. Hey, we want to have 100,000 of liquid reserves.
Mm.
And then once we get to the first 50, we're going to keep saving. But once we get to the first 50, then we're going to get super aggressive about blowing out our debt.
Mm-hmm.
Because what my mentors told me was, you want to get the money saved to ensure that you never go back there again.
Yes. Yeah.
And once again, this is not an approach that I've heard a lot of people talk about. But for me, man, it was way more energizing to focus on creating wealth, saving. That was, and then once we hit that 100,000 and we saved, extra few thousand on top, then we went and took a great trip.
Mm-hmm.
Took 4 or 5 days off, rewarded ourselves. Anyway, so
no, I think it's a big thing. This is the strategy that I got taught after I got myself debt free. So I've actually had a few clients. Again, obviously, mine is coaching, like fat loss and mental health coaching. But I've had a few clients struggling with their finances. So I've literally sat them down in my office and gone through this. So the first thing I'll say to people is exactly what you've said. So it's interesting that you say this isn't a strategy most people use. I agree, but it makes more sense. So again, from a logical point of view, you've got to think, if you've got debt, so you have no money saved and you've got debt. If you keep piling all your money to get yourself out of that debt and your washing machine blows up, you're now going to get yourself into another $2,000 of debt to pay for that washing machine. Whereas if you keep hitting your minimum payments on the cards, so you're still paying them off, but at the same time, you're aggressively saving so that you have 10 grand or 5 grand, whatever it is, just sat there, just as a little bit of a reserve and a savings. If you then start chucking the rest of that money, once you've hit that savings, into paying off the debt and your washing machine blows up, you do not have to go into debt to pay it off because you've got the savings there. And as you said, Chris, it's like it changes people's mindset because they are actually saving money. For the first time, they don't feel like a loser that's broke. They're actually saving money. They can see it going up and it helps them massively. And also on that note as well, if people have got two things, they've got a £10,000 debt that's got 5% interest, or a £5,000 one with 15% interest, most people would think to pay off the £10,000 one first. However, my research, correct me if I'm wrong, you want to pay off the £5,000 debt first because it's got a higher interest rate. So you want to pay off the higher interest rate first rather than the actual number. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and if you get to the point where you can't, you cannot negotiate, you can't get any more credit, you can't do, yeah, absolutely. You got to go attack. It's a debt snowball approach, and you get it. But the key is you got to create the savings habit, man.
Agreed.
It's big. And then once we had, we proved we could save money. But also part of that, Daniel, the big thing is you got to bring more money in. And so, so my wife and I sat down and we said, okay, what are some things we can do that are an extension of what we do, to bring, more income streams, multiple streams of income? What can we do to raise our income? And so, our focus is our business, but, our book actually came from that. I mean, we had some skills or some things that we like to do. And so we added other streams of income. And so most people get really stuck on, okay, this is what I do, this is what I make, and this is how I do it. You got to sit down and brainstorm and think, okay, what are some other ways I can raise, my income? Because that's one of the problems is inflation's so high, people aren't making enough. They're going into debt because they can't make enough to keep up with inflation. Guys, you got to be an entrepreneur, and that's one of my handle on Instagram is CF_E2E, and E2E stands for turning employees into entrepreneurs. Because you got to have it. And then the last thing with that is once we proved that we could do it, then my wife and I set up a fun account for her and a fun account for me.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the best things we've ever done is the beginning of the month, she manages the money and she, allocates X amount to me and she allocates X amount to her, and it's the same amount. And, and that's for seeing my kids and Christmas and having fun and all that. That's powerful because you're not going to blow your fun account money normally on something that's not going to bring value to you. And so that took all the resentment of fun out of the equation. So when we've had fun accounts for 12 years, it was her idea. But you got to, once you can get some habits built and you feel like you've gotten some habits created on saving money, then you got to allocate some fun. Otherwise, you'll sabotage the plan because you're not having any fun.
I think the biggest thing you hit on there as well, the first thing that people need to do before they do any of this stuff is, like you said, is just work on themselves. Because like I say, with anything, you are the person that's driving this forward. Like if you are not breaking down the limiting beliefs, looking on your identities, all the negative thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever it is, this is what I'm working with clients with fat loss. Like the way that I approach fat loss is so unique. I've not seen anyone else do this. I talk about it as a success bridge. So you've seen the old Indiana Jones movies where they've got the old wooden buckety bridges. So for me, when it comes to fat loss, people want to try and have the finest planks of whatever when it comes to having the best nutrition plan, the best training program, doing the cardio, all the supplements, all that stuff. Cool. They'll spend thousands on these things, but that's just planks of wood floating there. So you need the rope that ties it all together. That's the adherence. You've got to be able to stick to it. But then all you've got is planks of wood and rope just floating there. You need the 4 big pillars at either end that hold it all together. And that is your mental health and your mindset. That is your belief systems. That is your identity. That is all that stuff that holds it all together. And if you are not working on that, you will never succeed in anything, whether it's fat loss, whether it's business, whether it's saving money. Your brain, your mindset, your relationship with yourself is the most important thing you can invest your money in, because you ultimately are the one that's got to save. You are the one that's ultimately got to be in control of all this. So all this stuff you're saying is absolutely gold. And I love how you've articulated it, because essentially we've got the same, it seems to me that we've got the same vision, the same mission, but I'm doing it towards fat loss and mental health. You're doing it towards financial freedom. But fundamentally, it all starts with, you've got to get those big 4 corner pillars of the mental health and mindset sorted. Otherwise, the whole bridge falls apart.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's you're spot on, man. I mean, it's all mindset. It's all inside out. And if you don't do the internal work, I mean, I call it rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, right? I mean, it's not.
Oh, mate, I absolutely love that again.
Yeah, your mindset is the Titanic, man, and you can move the furniture all the way around, but the damn boat's going down, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So yeah, absolutely, man, spot on.
So final question, because again, due to the circumstances, which is completely my fault. So again, for my audience, I completely messed up the time zone difference. Obviously, in the UK, our clocks have changed, and it's completely my fault, my own. Chris was very gracious and actually been able to slightly rearrange this podcast time so we could get it going. This has been probably one of the most informative podcast I think I've ever done. Would you agree, Mikey? Like in the time we've spoken, how long have we been going for? What, like 49 minutes? The value and information you've given people is just absolutely insane. So I just want to say thank you. Final question that I ask all my guests. What advice would you give to somebody who feels stuck and out of control with their finances?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we Google Maps or a GPS or however you want to view it is for me and for my wife, it's just always been about defining point A. Like, what is it? Like, what's going on there, right? Like, what is the savings? What is the income? What is the debt? What is that? What is that situation? Point A of my mindset. Where's my mindset around money? And point A, and then, you know, understanding what is my point B, right? I mean, what do I want? I mean, for me and my wife, I mean, once again, our point A was pretty nasty, but getting to acceptance of point A, but we got really clear about, and having, having dreams. I mean, that's I've been flying around talking to a lot of crowds, and one of the things I ask them is, are you dreaming? I get some really curious looks, man. Like they're like, "What are you talking about?" And they're not really dreaming, and I know why. It's hard to dream when you're struggling. I get it.
Yep.
But my wife and I sat down and said, okay, if we keep looking at our environment, it's just going to keep looking the same. Like, what do we really want? What are we aiming for? What's our ideal life look like? And once again, there was no evidence that it was going to show up based on our current circumstances, but we had to start looking at really what we wanted. And it wasn't material stuff or all that, but it was a level of financial independence because, I had a mentor a long time ago. She looked me in the eye. We were struggling. She's like, Chris, you'll never know how good you can be until money's behind you. Like,
Wow.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
And I get goosebumps every time I say it, and I probably say it 24 times a week. I mean, you'll never know how good you can be until money's behind you, meaning the reason you want to get money, some peace of mind around it is you don't have to think about it, and you're able to extend your service. And Billy Graham wrote a quote. He said, once you get your attitude straight around money, it's going to help straighten out every area of your life. Oh my God, dude, that totally changed my world. Like, once I got my attitude straight around money, I had to practice forgiveness. I talked to a group of advisors in Texas this week, and we spent an hour and a half on forgiving people because I had a coach that said, until you forgive your ex-wife, you're going to be a broke joke your whole life.
Yeah, it's always someone else's fault, playing the blame game.
Yeah, well, and it's just, he's like, you need to learn how to forgive her, which was one of the greatest things I've ever done in my life. I still do. I make a list of people I have grievances on, and I go through a forgiveness process. Anyway, I'm giving you more than you asked, but there's a process here of where am I point A. I would also add to that, who do I need to forgive? Because people that hold on, and you're a health guy, I had a buddy that used to work with cancer patients, and he was more of a naturopath. And one of the first things he would do is he'd sit him down. He's like, okay, you obviously need to forgive somebody. And he's like, they're like, what do you mean? He's like, well, forgiveness is usually the root of all cancer. And dude, unbelievable. And so, so point A, who do I need to, let go of, and who do I got grievances on that I need to release? And then point B, what's my dream? What do I want? Where are we going? And then our key was taking that ideal life, and then we were able to get focused on like the next quarter. Okay, how much money do we need to have saved by March 31st or whatever, or December 31st? And then we dialed it into what's the strategies, tactics, and processes that I must complete this week. And then at the end of that, there was just this course correction that we did every week. Okay, what did we learn? What's good? And it's cool, man. And when you're on the path and you're making progress, you're making progress, that's when you get the good dopamine hits in your brain. Is the goal is great, but knowing that you're on the path to it and you're making progress is a pretty significant reward. So point A, point B.
And that's, again, things in motion tend to stay in motion. So again, once you get going, like, that's absolutely incredible. You've said, again, in that last part there, some incredible stuff. You said you gave me too much information. Chris, I don't think I'll ever complain to a podcast guest for giving me too much information, because again, that's more value for my audience. So you said some amazing things there. So again, where are you at right now? Be honest with it, get real, identify it, be honest with yourself, and then where do you want to go? And then set that intention. And that then got me thinking of when I was in debt. I was sat there, had no clients, had no business. I was up in Manchester, away from home, and I was in a lot of debt. And I remember writing on my whiteboard, it's the same whiteboard I've got right down here next to me, and I wrote down £10,000. And I had absolutely no right at all to do that. And I spent £250 on a course at the time. And my girlfriend at the time said I was a fucking idiot, because that was literally all my money gone. That was all my money gone. That was it. And I said, I think that this course is going to help me sort my life out. And she says, well, it's fucking better because you now don't have any money. And it did. That was the thing that basically helped the Prime Life Project. Where I'm at right now is a direct result of that decision I made. And I had no right to put that £10,000 on the board. And it was absolutely incredible for me, because it gave me a target to aim for, and I could then reverse process it back. And again, one thing's about forgiveness. Again, when it comes to Buddhism, a thing called metta bhavana. Again, they talk about forgiving, like active loving kindness. So I think that's a massive thing. Whenever anyone does things to annoy me or frustrate me, when I meditate, I will try and visualize them and just forgive them and just give them a bit of love, a bit of grace. And it's the hardest thing you will ever do, especially with some of the pieces of shit that are walking around on this planet. But I promise you, just getting that stuff out of your backpack that you're carrying around is unbelievable. And then, as you said, Chris, once you get money out of the way, you take money out the debt out of that backpack, it gets so much lighter and it will completely free you up. Chris, this genuinely has been an absolute pleasure. Where can my audience find out more information about you, and where can they buy your book?
Yeah, couplesmoney.com is our website, couplesmoney.com. And I have in the store, I have a complimentary 60-minute coaching session that I'll take people through. I help them define point A, point B, game plan. I talk about mindset, and there's lots of things we can do. The book is there. The book's also on Amazon. We have an Audible version. So there's good things there. I'm on Twitter at CL, L as in Larry, CL Felton. And then Instagram, I'm dropping 5 posts a week, all around. Really, it's journaling the things that have actually helped me, and that's the CF_E, the number 2 E, CF_E2E. And then chris.felton@wealthwave.com. So happy to answer emails and help. That's part of my purpose on the planet, is to help people free themselves mentally and financially so they can live an amazing life. So,
mate, mine's mentally and physically. That's it. My purpose is to help people mentally and physically become the best versions of themselves. Mate, this has been genuinely an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much, and thank you for being so accommodating at the start of this podcast as well.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, no, it's been awesome. Time has flown by. I really appreciate you.
Take care.
Okay, buddy.